Hello, and welcome to another episode of Brettcast Gaming Talk. Yes, it's now time for me to talk about another Legend of Zelda game, and that's because, as of writing the script for this video, I finally finished the game that I'm going to be talking about in this video. So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. Spirit Tracks is the sequel to Phantom Hourglass and is the final game in the adult era. If it doesn't make any sense to you, then that's okay. The game has a very similar aspect to Phantom Hourglass, and that is the idea of returning to a single dungeon place several times. I really want to say it was easier in Spirit Tracks, but the only saving grace is that you're not having to deal with a time limit like you did in Phantom Hourglass. The first major thing in this game is that you have to restore the Spirit Tracks and the Tower of Spirits, which for some reason split itself into floating sections. So to restore both things, you go to various sanctuaries in the realms, and you do a song with the sanctuary's guardian person. Okay, I guess I need to back up a little bit in the game here. Princess Zelda is basically a ghost the whole game because the secondary villain, Cole, decides that he wants to use her body as a vessel for the main villain, Malladus, the Demon King. Before Zelda becomes a ghost, she gives you an item called the Spirit Flute. You use this flute to play various songs. The important ones are the ones that you play with Sanctuary Guardians that give you the rail maps that show you how to get to whatever area temple. You first go to the Forest Temple, then the Snow Temple, the Ocean Temple, then the Fire Temple, and lastly the Sand Temple. Personally, the Sand Temple boss is the boss that I hate the most. There are some new items in the game like the Whirlwind, Whip, and Sand Wand. The Whirlwind is an interesting item where you aim it at something and then you blow into the Nintendo DS microphone and you can push things around and you can also stun some enemies. The Whip is pretty fun. It's mostly used for swinging between log peg things. I don't really know how to describe them. You can use the whip on enemies, but it's more useful against shielded enemies because it'll grab their shield away. Otherwise, I wouldn't really use it on enemies just because it only does half the damage of the sword. The Sand Wand is both an interesting item, but the circumstances in using it in puzzles can be very frustrating to me. The Sand Wand will raise sand in sandy areas. Yes, that does sound exactly like how you're thinking it sounds, because I don't know how else to say it until I talk about the puzzles that you use it in. But I want to say that what I want to say about the Tower of Spirits is that you have to visit the place a total of 6 times in the game. Yeah, each time you visit, it gets a little more challenging, but with the exception of the last visit, you're doing the same thing with the same end goal. The enemies here are phantoms. What? Yeah, those same things from the fan favorite Temple of the Ocean King from Phantom Hourglass. You know. But, in Spirit Tracks, we get different kinds of phantoms, too. See, now you're not tired of phantoms because there's more variety. Aside from the basic phantoms, we also have the Warp Phantom, the Torch Phantom, and the Wrecker Phantom. Also, the Phantom Eyes are back too, and they serve a little more purpose in this game because of the fact that the Warp Phantoms can warp to wherever the Phantom Eyes are. The Torch Phantom has a flaming sword, and that's kind of it. The Wrecker Phantom can roll up into a ball and wreck stuff. With Zelda being a ghost in the game, she can possess the phantoms. At first I thought that this would be a cool mechanic, but later on, controlling her could be a bit of a chore. This is mostly because she walks really fucking slow, and this makes things really frustrating in places like the Sand Temple. When you use the sand wand, the blocks only stay for a short period of time. And there's moments where you have to create a path for Zelda while making sure the sand blocks don't go away, because she'll fall and then sink into the sand below. Yeah, for some reason they made it so that Link can walk across sinking sand no problem, but Zelda in a Phantom just sinks. I mean, I guess she could be too heavy to walk across the sand. I don't really know. There lies one of my least favorite aspects of Spirit Tracks are the later game puzzles that require you to get Zelda from point A to B, but you have to use the sand wand to do this. The combination of these sand blocks that disappear quickly and a slow walking Zelda really makes things just that little bit more frustrating. Another frustrating thing in the game are the enemy trains that will plague you throughout the entire game. The reason that I find them frustrating is because if one starts to chase you, you're basically screwed and are going to die. I remember a few times too that I was really close to pulling into the station at, say, Hyrule Castle, just to have one of the enemy trains decide that, oh, I'm gonna go right by this station and I'm just gonna ram right fucking into you. However, these things do not even add up to the complete and utter frustration that is the last portion of the game, taking place in the Dark Realm. It starts with having to collect these power pellets that power up your train so you can ram the enemy's armored trains. Then you have to fight the demon train. It has a phase of you have to shoot explosive barrels, then 2 phases of lasers. But then the real hard part begins. You and Zelda, in the Phantom body, are on the roof of the demon train. Malladus is at the front and you have to walk towards Malladus. Doesn't sound too bad, you say, but you have Cole that sends mice, which not only scares Zelda and make her stop moving if one touches her, Cole can use her as a puppet. I got so beyond frustrated with this because I would make so much progress getting close to Malladus, and then Zelda gets puppeted by Cole, and then we're back basically where we started. Once you reach Malladus, Zelda will grab Malladus, and then the two of them will float around. Malladus will struggle against Zelda, and they'll spin around for a while in the air, and you have to place a well-timed light arrow shot at Malladus while they're moving. And Malladus has to be facing you. Like I said, well-timed. Malladus has to be facing you for the arrow to hit, otherwise it will hit Zelda and just bounce off of her. I had to take 2 tries at this because of course I did. Even the actual fight that follows after this against Malladus in his beast form isn't as frustrating, just as long as you have more than a quarter of a heart and no potions, because you used them in the previous section. Because that's what happened to me. I used both of my potions and had a quarter heart to finish the game. Despite the frustration that I went through, there are good moments, and even moments of finding dungeon mechanics interesting for me. This game has some similar things to Phantom Hourglass, but it also takes things from that game and improves upon them too, including ways that you can use the boomerang on torches and the bow and arrow to shoot eyes, and picking up those I forget what they're called, glass arrow things that you would shoot them and then they would shoot your arrow at something else. Yeah, those puzzles where you have to pick those up and move them. There are interesting things too, like some dungeons will have lava, in which, you have to get on top of Zelda in the Phantom suit and have Zelda carry you, and sometimes you have to use, one of your items while you're up there. But despite all the frustrations, I still had fun playing this game. The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks is a good game. That's all I have to say, so if you want to get into the conversation, leave a comment below. As always, thanks for listening, and goodbye.